Okay.
You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Let's get it, Jack. Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, 8 to 10 a.m., Wednesday through Sunday. You can see our Facebook shows on Max Sports and Northeast Streaming Sports Network with our platforms also on Twitter and Instagram. Like, follow, comment, share, and subscribe when possible. Check out the website on macandjacksports.com called Max Insiders for information on our weekly guests, articles, team public relations updates, a list of shows on the Northeast Streaming Sports Network, our great sponsors with links to their products and services. I'm Mac with your co-host, Jack Hirsch, legendary boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, bringing you national sports with special focus on the Northeast professional sports teams from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack. How are you doing?
Well said, Mac. Good morning.
Yeah. Well, once in a while when I slow down, that's always been my biggest problem in any profession I've been in, Jack, even cooking. I go too fast. My mind goes before my mouth. And I either get in trouble or I have to go back and overdo things again. Do over things.
No, I'm like that too. Even watching an occasional replay of this show, I say something. I was thinking something in addition to that, but I don't express the thought, and I just say the words, the second part of it. You know, we kind of get ahead of ourselves. We're like a receiver in football. You like to give that. We like to go out on the fly pattern, all out quick, and sometimes we forget to make that little move, the little cut. But we're pretty entertaining. We get the job done.
Yes, we do. I mean, it's like you said, like a receiver running with the ball before he catches it, Jack. So, scheduled on today's show, Jack, we have Iceman John Scully talking about boxing with us. And we also have Carter B covering the National Hockey League. So, two good guests, great information, and we'll be visiting with them in a little bit. And the sports update, Jack, they've already settled in and projected the top 10 draft picks in the NFL for next year. The first, of course, going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The second to the New York Jets. Miami gets the third pick from a trade they made. Atlanta, Cincy, Philadelphia moved up to number 6 with their loss to Washington. Detroit, Carolina, Denver, and Dallas, Jack. The New York Giants come in at 11. The Patriots are at 15. The Bills are at 30. And the New York Jets get the 2 picks in the first round from that Adams trade they made with Seattle. So that's your...
And they get a number 1 next year as well.
Right. So that's your top 10.
Deal. So they'll have 2 number 1s next year also.
Exactly. So they have a shot at building up their team. Governor Cuomo, Jack, will give away his Bills ticket for the playoffs. His decision is, to permit the team to have fans. And he's worried about the backlash of him going to the game when he's closing down.
Let me tell you something. Had he gone to the game, that would have been the worst politician blunder. I'm talking about locally and local politics since Governor Chris Christie closed the beaches in New Jersey, and the next day he was on the beach. And then he got mad when people criticized him for going to the beach. He closes it to the public, and there you see him with his family enjoying the beach on a summer day. Come on.
It's incredible, right? I mean, they, a lot of times we think politicians are smart and maybe they are, but a lot of times they don't have common sense. In the NBA, Jack, the 76ers beat Washington 141-136. We have Boston beating Minnesota 107-105, and the Knicks with a late surge beat Utah 112-100. The 76ers jumped out fast, despite 60 points from Bradley Beal and the Warriors, who had 12 assists. They held them off. Embiid had 38 points. Simmons had 17 points and 18 assists, Jack.
You have one of your players lose 60 points and you lose the game. Russell Westbrook going to Washington is not going to translate into winning. Russell Westbrook's individual game just doesn't fit into the team concept. He didn't win with Kevin Durant at OKC, at James Harden at Houston. Now at Washington, they have, last I saw, the worst record in the NBA. So it's Bradley Beal, 60 points. Kudos to him. He's a heck of a player. But all the people who are calling for Russell Westbrook to go to the Knicks because it would have added a lot of excitement, which it would have, they wouldn't have going what they have going now had Russell Westbrook come to the Knicks. And no knock on Russell Westbrook as far as being a great individual talent, but some players' games are so dominant in certain facets that it just doesn't fit into the team concept. And that's the case, I think, with Russell Westbrook.
I agree with that, Jack, to a point. I think Russell Westbrook coming to the Knicks wouldn't have hurt as much as you think. I think that it would have gave them a good point guard that might have bridged the gap. But I understand what you're saying with a young team. Russell Westbrook might have been more of a distraction than a help, but who knows? We'll never know.
Well, not an off-the-court distraction. I'm just saying his game just doesn't translate into a team being as successful as they should be. Again, I know I'm repeating myself, but when you're playing alongside Kevin Durant and you never win an NBA title, it ought to tell you something. And they did have the big three at OKC at one point. People forget that they had James Harden, Kevin Durant, and Russell Westbrook all on that team. And had they kept them all together, would they have won an NBA championship? Maybe they would have won somewhere down the line. But then again, maybe not, which is,
Yeah. I mean, listen, I agree. But, all three of them basketball players love having the ball in their hands, Jack. So, I don't know if that would have affected the Knicks in a bad way. But right now they're playing exciting ball, and I'm happy about that. In Boston, Jaylen Brown gets 21 points and 12 rebounds. Tatum gets 27 points. Miami Butler, he gets 26. And Bayou gets 15 points and 10 assists. So Boston squeaks out a win over them yesterday, Jack. So, but a win is a win.
Yeah, Boston, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Brooklyn. It's going to be very interesting to see who comes out of the East, especially if Brooklyn doesn't take off at some point. Boston does have a shot to get to the finals.
Yes, definitely. The Knicks finished strong in the second half. Randall gets 30 points and 16 rebounds, Jack. Peyton, who I guess is a guard, if I read it right, got 28 points and 8 assists, Jack. And they came back strong.
Forget those guys, Mac. It was the Austin Rivers show in the last few minutes. He scores 14 points, the last 14 points for the Knicks. He hits 4 3-pointers during that span. Austin Rivers was sensational. He wanted the ball. I mean, he was an assassin on the court. They were guarding him tightly. He still made the shots. I mean, he looked like a superstar last night. And going forward, Austin Rivers, who's coming off the bench for the Knicks right now, he's going to be a key guy on that team. I think there's an excellent chance he moves into a starting role before the season's over. And he elected to go to the Knicks rather than play for his dad, Doc Rivers, in Philadelphia. He wants to be his own guy. He wants to be on a team that's building something from the ground on
Yeah.
up, and he's doing it. I mean, and the way his teammates embraced him yesterday, it was great. He was sensational. He was the player of the night outside of Bradley Beal in the
Yeah.
NBA.
I mean, listen, we've talked about Julius Randle a few times on the show. How you feel maybe he's just a good player, would be maybe a bench player, or maybe, not the go-to guy in another team, but he's really stepped up, Jack. He's playing his tail off. It seems like Thibodeau knows how to use these young players, which is why we got him. Well, the Knicks got him. I shouldn't say we, because I had nothing to do with it. But the reason why the Knicks got him, and it goes
Well,
to
if you're a fan, you could say we.
Okay, if it goes to show, making that move in the the general manager department, bringing on the assistant, and getting the right coach makes a world of difference. I know it's just the beginning, Jack, but this is something they can build on.
Let me tell you what I was thinking of yesterday. When the Knicks were coming back against Jazz yesterday, had the Garden been full, it would have been rocking. There would have
Right.
been excitement in the air, so on. The Madison Square Garden crowd hasn't had that would have had that type of excitement for years, but there was no one in the stands.
Right.
But there's a new energy at the Garden now that we haven't had before with the young players. As far as Julius Randle goes, let me make it clear. He's a good, solid player. I'm not knocking him, but he's just not a go-to guy on if you want to have a really good team. He's just not. I mean, he fits in as a starter, but you have to have a couple of options before him if you want to take it to the next level. If you're a Knick team with all this young talent, you scratch your claw every single night, and you're just trying to get a playoff position, then Julius Randle's okay. But if you're talking about a championship level team, ultimately, Julius Randle can't be a go-to guy. It doesn't mean he can't be in the starting lineup. He can't make a nice contribution, but he can't be one of your main guys on an elite team. And if you need any evidence of that, look at all the elite teams around the NBA. Let's make believe you give them Julius Randle right now. He wouldn't be a go-to guy on any of those teams.
Well, they said the same thing about Butler at one time, Jack. They said he was just a good defender, and he's turned into a good offensive player too. So I think a lot has to do with the system you're playing in, the coach you have, and Thibodeau seems to know how to work these young guys.
No. The Jimmy Butler comparison, I don't go for it. Was a better player than Julius Randle ever was, a clearly better player. I mean, he was a star at Chicago when Dwayne Wade went as a free agent. He left the Miami Heat to go to the Chicago Bulls. The first thing he did at practice was when all the guys got together, he says, I have an announcement to make. This is Jimmy Butler's team, that I defer to Jimmy Butler. He's the leader of that team. I couldn't imagine for the life of me a Dwayne Wade saying that about Julius Randle. He's the leader of that team. And then when Jimmy Butler went to the Timberwolves, he tried to lead with the Timberwolves, who we thought were team of the future, but they were dysfunctional. Jimmy Butler got frustrated, and they had to trade him to the Sixers, in which he contributed mightily there. He was a leader there. Joel Embiid loved him and misses him badly as a teammate. And look what Jimmy Butler did with Miami last year. He was arguably the best player on the court in the finals, if you could, between the Lakers and the Heat, arguably, okay?
Yeah.
The only reason the Heat went to 6 games was because of Jimmy Butler's efforts and his leadership. So Jimmy Butler's one of the better players in the NBA, something you could never say about Julius Randle, who's a good, solid player.
Okay, Jack. Let's talk about that draft that I brought up a little while ago. We know the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to take Trevor Lawrence. I don't think there's any question about that. The Jets, where do they go? Do they try to get a receiver? Do they try to build their defense, or do they go for that quarterback, Jack?
If Chase Wilson is available, when the Jets, at around 10, 12, whatever, they have that other draft pick late in the first round.
Right.
they can give that first rounder and a first rounder next year to get that quarterback if they're really high on him. Okay. But I don't know what the answer is. I kind of feel if they're really high on Justin Fields, very, very high, depending on what he does in the championship game against Alabama, then they'll go in that direction. But none of us know what the answer is. I mean, Devonta Smith looks, Heisman Trophy winner. He looks awfully appealing to have there as a wideout. But I guess none of us know at this point, and none of us should know, because just in case the Jets want to trade, they have to keep everyone off balance.
Yeah.
So we can't know what direction they're headed in. Obviously, Jacksonville can give away what they're going to do, because they're probably taking Trevor Lawrence. That's just about a gimme.
Well,
with the Jets, it's best they keep people off balance.
Well, I know, that you don't personally know, but what are your thoughts, Jack? Do they get the quarterback if he's available, or do they try to build or fill some of the other holes they have on the team with these?
My thoughts are you have to ask me next week, because we're going to see what Justin Fields does. If Justin Fields throws 3 picks and looks really bad against Alabama, they're not going to take Justin Fields with the 2nd overall pick. But if Justin Fields does what he did against Clemson, throwing 6 touchdown passes, and a couple of them showing tremendous arm strength, playing through an injury in that game, showing the heart of a lion there, showing mobility, looking the full package, I believe the Jets are going to take him with the 2nd pick. But it's like, let's wait and see, till next week what they're going to do with that pick.
So Philadelphia gets their wish. They move up to number 6. Philly, I don't know. I think there's a problem. You got to definitely have a problem there with Wentz. We still don't know if Hurts is going to be a franchise quarterback. He looks like he's got potential. We said that about Wentz too. And, their receiving crew is not that great with, Deshaun Jackson, who's hurt. The tight end is a question mark with Hurts, maybe playing his last game. Their defense still looked pretty good. Where do you think the Eagles will be looking, Jack?
Let me tell you, it's not that big a difference between 6 and 9 in my view. Unless the Eagles wanted to take a quarterback, Fields, if they were interested in taking any of the quarterbacks, there has to be more than Justin Fields out there. But I can't see them being in the market for quarterback. That would be insanity.
Right.
That would just add to the problems that they're having right now. The Eagles need help in several positions. I mean, they need help in the offensive line. I mean, Wentz wasn't protected that well early in the year. But of all the NFL teams, the offensive line is the biggest problem, as far as I can see, because very few teams really protect the quarterback as well as they should. Now, you mentioned Deshaun Jackson. Are the Eagles going to want to bring him back? He always seems to be injured all the time, but when he's healthy, he's a terrific wideout. Yeah. They can use another running back as well. Sometimes when the team has multiple needs, maybe they draft down. Maybe that's the plan. Give up the number 6 pick and take, let's say, a number 14 and a 2nd round draft choice from a team just so they could fill up positions. I mean, there's a certain strategy there that I'm sure the Eagles are thinking of. But like the Jets, they need help, in several areas. So
yeah, I agree with that, Jack. So we got them coming in at 6. You got the Giants coming at 11. The Giants it looked like a solid defensive scheme. Their sacks were way up this year. Their defensive line stopped the run. They got a young secondary that seemed to be coming together. I mean, the coverage was pretty good this year. Their running game started coming together. The offensive line looked like they were kind of gelling. Receivers, I mean, you got Shepard, who played well in the last game. You've got, Slayton, who seems that he has the potential, when not hurt, to be a big game breaker. You got Golden Tate in the slot, and you got Evan Ingram at tight end, Where do you think the Giants will be looking? You think they'll be looking for a pass
Now,
rusher?
there's a question I want you to answer, Mac, which you have to give a lot of thought to. When a team drafts, do you draft by need or do you draft the best player available?
That's a good question. If you follow Bill Belichick's plan, he drafts by needs. If you follow some of the other ones, they draft by best player available. So you have a good quarterback, a franchise who you think is a franchise quarterback. Say Daniel Jones. Say they think that this guy next year is going to turn it around and he's going to play somewhat like he did in his rookie year, start throwing the ball downfield for 3,000 yards, tightens up his interceptions and turnovers. He could be a very solid quarterback. Could be. But we don't know that yet, do we? We really don't know that yet. So if they're at 11 and say Fields is available, it might, in my thoughts are anyway, I would either go for a tight end because we do need a tight end that can catch the ball, or maybe take a look at Fields at quarterback or one of the other big quarterbacks, and let's see what Jones has in a competition. See, to me, I think Daniel Jones has the potential, but it's going to be his third year, and let's see if we can push him a little bit.
I think that would be a massive mistake to take a draft pick that high just to push someone in a competition. That would be, it's an awful pick to do. I mean, absolutely awful, because you're not improving that one position that much. Or if you're improving it slightly, you're neglecting other areas. I mean, but unless it's the best player available, you don't go in with the idea of pushing someone else. And such a thing happened years ago with the Jets. They had 4 first-round draft picks. Wow, this was about 20, 25 years ago. I'm just estimating the amount of years. They took at number 12, I think, Sean Elliott, number 13, John Abraham. Then they were going 18th. And Chad Pennington was available, but they didn't need a quarterback. They had Vinny Testaverde, but they drafted Chad Pennington because the Jets felt they had no choice, because they felt he was a top 10 talent who'd slipped in the draft. And their logic was, we can't bypass a guy at this point. So even though they didn't need a quarterback, they didn't intend to take one, they took Chad Pennington because he was by far the best player available. And eventually Chad Pennington became the starter of that team.
Right.
They took Anthony Beck at 27, by the way, who was a good blocking tight end for them, as well.
Right. So it kind of worked out for the Jets then, because
it did.
Testaverde was getting a little old in the tooth at that time too. He's been playing for many years, but Jones is not in a position. Jones is still trying to establish himself. I think a lot has to do with whether, our offensive coordinator Garrett leaves or not. I think that will be a big decision coming up, whether they do go offense or not, or who their offensive coordinator will be. I just think that Daniel Jones needs another year, but it sure wouldn't hurt having an exciting second-string quarterback behind him, Jack.
Okay, so what happens if Jones develops?
Right.
And his look good, improves, nothing sensational, but he improves. You see he's getting better. You'll still want to keep him as your starting quarterback, but your first-round pick is number 11, a high number, is just going to keep sitting on the bench the next few years while you have a young quarterback improving. This isn't a Phillip Rivers situation where you have an older veteran quarterback where you're starting the transition.
Understood.
Okay? And listen, maybe I'm the one out of line, maybe for being a little too hard on you, Mac. When I look at what the Green Bay Packers did, they traded down in the first round to take Jordan Love.
Right.
So maybe it's not so crazy what you're saying, okay? It makes sense on reflection of a team doing that, but it doesn't work out. Look, has it worked out with the Packers with Jordan Love? They wasted a draft pick. They traded down. They lost value in which they could have been giving Aaron Rodgers more help to draft someone based on potential Jordan Love, who is not even the Packers' backup now.
Yeah. And if you remember, Rodgers was there for a few years under Favre also.
3 years.
I'm just saying, Jack, that maybe we don't know yet, that maybe Jones is not the answer. Maybe Fields won't be the answer too. But if I was in that position and Fields dropped to me, I would give serious
Well, it
consideration.
depends how high in the draft. The Eagles were criticized by some for taking Jalen Hurts. So they're looking to move on from Wentz, but they took Jalen Hurts, I believe, with the 53rd overall pick. By that time, they could look at the board and say Jalen Hurts is by far the best value, and the board by far the best player. So at
Right.
that point, it's fine taking him. But you're talking about the 11th overall pick. You're going to get you should be able to get a real good quality player there.
You would think.
And if Justin Fields does drop down to number 11, then there's some serious red flags.
Maybe.
There has to be
Yeah.
reasons why. It's not exactly an accident. Years ago, Mac, just very quickly, when Matt Leinart, was a great college quarterback at USC, the Jets were picking number 4 in the draft. And the big question was, would the Jets be able to pick Matt Leinart? Would he last? He lasted to number 4. The Jets took DeBrickashaw Ferguson, an offensive lineman.
Yeah.
Matt Leinart slipped to number 11, I think it was. Arizona took him. And Matt Leinart didn't turn out to be a quality NFL quarterback. He was a career backup. DeBrickashaw Ferguson is a type of player, I guess you could put him in the Jets Ring of Honor. So, he had such an outstanding career for the Jets.
Well, Jack, Rodgers dropped a long ways in the draft too, and he became quite a good quarterback.
They come about 26, but they had the great Brett Favre there.
And so did Jackson. So did Jackson drop down too, and look what he's doing.
Lamar Jackson didn't really drop down. He wasn't expected to go that high.
I mean, he
15 when the Ravens took him. No, he wasn't one of the big 4 quarterbacks.
Jack, I
around the rear end, they had the big 4. Then Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson was solidly entrenched in behind Baker Mayfield,
and
Josh Rosen, and Josh Allen.
And Mahomes wasn't drafted in the top 5.
Mahomes went 10th. He went behind. Trubisky went first, then Watson, Deshaun Watson went, then Patrick Mahomes. But people weren't arguing at the time. They weren't saying the team's crazy not to take Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
But Patrick Mahomes was on the bench as Alex Smith's backup the first year. Chief fans weren't calling for Alex Smith to be sat down for Patrick Mahomes to come, and they didn't know what they had in Patrick Mahomes. It's like the Yankees in the 1995 playoff series against Seattle. They left David Cohn for 147 pitches. They had Mariano Rivera in the bullpen. No one complained at the time. No one knew what we had in Mariano.
Right.
We found out later.
Right. But you asked me my opinion. I gave it to you, Jack. Either a quarterback or a tight end I would be looking at, because I think the team is solid going forward with all the young players.
You've had it with Evan Ingram, Mac. You've given up on him.
I have
given up on him with dropping the ball.
So, Jack, before Iceman John Scully comes on, let me do our segment, It Ain't Gonna Happen. This is brought to you by, Jack, is brought to you by bstbreaks.com. And a quick commercial read for them is that from the best in wax and straight to the pack, BST Sports Cars has it all. Join the phenomenon, Jack, with the best sports cars breakers in the business. bstbreaks.com. Get $10 off select brakes and boxes when you enter the code MACJACK, that's Mac Jack, at checkout on the BST Sports website. They have multiple authenticated jerseys, boxes, and more. And you know what's great, Jack? They give back to their community. And they have a new line coming out for their 2021 year here. Details are on their website. Don't forget to put the Mac and Jack code at checkout, MACJACK, to receive a special discount from BST. And, of course, BST wishes you happy holidays. So there you go. They're on multiple platforms daily, Jack. So very good company. They're one of our sponsors, and they do a great job at providing people with a lot of memorabilia.
Good-looking boxes, Mac. I can imagine what's inside of them. Very nice looking.
Yes, sir. So, Jack, This is where I ask you of what's going to happen in the future. You look into your crystal ball and you give me your answers, and hopefully they're educated answers. So, Washington beats the Buccaneers, Jack.
No, it ain't going to happen. I know Chase Young is talking. He wants to go after Tom Brady. Chase Young will sack him at some point. Chase Young is a great young player, number 2 overall draft choice. But no, Buccaneers, too many weapons, too good a team. Washington might give him a little resistance because they have a good defense. But no, Buccaneers will win with a little room to spare.
Okay. The Eagles will be investigated by the NFL for tanking the last game.
Ain't gonna happen. Roger Goodell has enough headaches with investigations and so on. And the Eagles didn't tank the game. Nate Sudfeld was just awful, embarrassingly bad. He didn't intend to be that way. Ain't gonna happen. I think they're gonna let it. Everyone's gonna let this go and move on.
The Browns beat the real Steelers team, Jack.
Ain't gonna happen. I mean, the Browns. When you talk about leadership really should start from the coaching staff, and that's where you have it on the Brown team, but half the Brown coaching staff isn't even going to be at the game. And it's the Browns have had a highly successful season, just posting double-digit victories and making it to the playoffs. And the Steelers needed more. The Steelers rested their players last week, and the Browns didn't have that novelty of resting their players when they played the game. It ain't going to happen, but it might not be the blowout people think it is. I think it's going to be a tougher game than people, they're taking it for granted the Steelers will win. The Steelers will win, but the Browns will offer some firm resistance, I feel.
I think you're right, Jack. The Colts shocked the Bills, Jack.
No. I mean, no. The Bills are just too well primed, and they're so psyched to the hilt, and they've been playing so well. And a Bill loss would be a mini disaster after going 13-3. And I know the Colts are a very capable team. We were talking about offensive lines before. They're one of the few teams in the NFL who really does protect their quarterback, and it's allowed Phillip Rivers to thrive this year. But the Bills are just point out a better team. They're ready. They're primed. They'll win by a couple of touchdowns.
Okay, remember the Buffalo Bills defense ain't what it was the last couple of years, Jack, and the Colts do have an awesome running game.
But they've got it together, late in the year. I think the defense and listen, the Colts are one of these real sleepers, like Tennessee was last year, who you're not taking that seriously going into the playoffs. But if you look underneath the surface, they really are a very good, well-rounded football team with few weaknesses. So, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if the Colts beat the Bills, but the Bills need it so bad. Mac, they haven't been able to get over the hump and win a playoff game in ages. Okay, yeah. And they've gotten bumped in the first round the last couple of years. This is their Super Bowl in a sense. If they win this game, even if they lose the following week, the season's been a success. But if they lose this first round playoff game, people aren't going to be talking about their 13-3 record. They'll talk about how they failed in the playoffs once again.
I agreed with everything you said there, Jack. The Bears upset the Saints, Jack. The Bears wait a minute. The Bears almost beat Green Bay last week, Jack. And the Bears have a good defense, a decent running game, and Drew Brees is looking a little long in the tooth there, Jack. You sure about that?
I didn't see the Bears nearly beating Green Bay. They hung in, a good part of the game, but there's a difference involved. Bears were 8-8. Bottom line, people were talking about them firing their coach, Matt Nagy, not so long ago. People would be debating their quarterback situation between Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles as much as they would the Eagles' quarterback situation. And the Bears have always, they've always had a good defense all along. I'll say that. But listen, the NFL could be heartless if for some reason, you know, if for some reason Drew Brees, I don't know why the name escaped me. You see how easy we forget. Drew
Yeah,
Brees
yeah.
slumps
It's
through
age, Jack.
the
It's
game.
age.
Yeah, I know how easy we forget one of the all-time greats. I don't
Yes.
remember his name. Taysom Hill is there as a backup. Who's highly
Okay.
effective in that
Real,
role.
real quick, because we got the Iceman waiting backstage, Jack. Jackson runs for over 100 yards against the Titans.
I'm predicting that game goes into overtime. What a toss-up game, Mac.
Yeah.
What a toss-up game. Uh, Ravens are really good at their cornerback crews as well as any in the NFL. They got great corners, but Ryan Hill basically is a first quarterback. They're run first team with Derrick Henry. I look for tight game. I'm gonna think, I'm gonna edge it out for the Titans right
So does
now, but that could change in a day or two when we make our final picks.
Jimmy Garoppolo is back on the Patriots, Jack.
Yeah, no, that ain't gonna happen. I can't see the 49ers just giving him back to Belichick. I can't see it. They gave a second round. Well, they gave a second round draft choice to get him. Maybe New England returns the favor and gives a second round draft choice. Maybe even a first round draft choice. It's very intriguing. But who's going to quarterback for the Niners? Is it going to be C.J. Beathard? There's not enough of a body of work to feel he could be a replacement. Has Josh Rosen looked good in practice since they picked him up a couple of weeks ago for them to think he could quarterback next year? Garoppolo's too safe a bet for the Niners to move on from him.
Okay,
I don't think they will.
So without further ado, we have our friend and our weekly guest, the Iceman, John Scully, backstage. We're going to bring him up. He's a former multiple Golden Glove champion, former ranked middleweight and light heavyweight contender for the belt, former ESPN analyst and trainer of champions. Let's bring the Iceman up. How you doing today, John?
Hey, John.
I'm good. What's happening?
We're just debating on football. Jack does this segment, It Ain't Gonna Happen, where I ask him his predictions, and he gives me the reasons why it ain't or is gonna happen. So that's Jack with his crystal ball over there.
You can give those to John. It ain't gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
I could about boxing.
Yeah.
I could ask him. Iceman ain't gonna happen or is gonna happen. Joshua will beat Wilder for the championship.
Fury, you mean Tyson Fury?
Fury. Yes,
Yeah.
Tyson.
Man, I don't think so. I like Fury. If but it's hard to say because these guys hardly ever fight. You don't know who they even are anymore. I mean, I don't know who's going to show up that night, but if the best of both show up, I think style wise and everything, I would go with Fury.
So it ain't going to happen then, John. Joshua's not going to do it. All right. So, John, I want to get into some boxing news with you, but I did find out that you got some kind of humanitarian award for helping the needy boxers out there, where you're having memorabilia signed and up for auction. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, basically, a few years ago, I was, I know that Wilfred Benitez and Gerald McClellan are, they're in bad shape, and their sisters take care of them on their own, like 24 hours a day. So I had something. I don't know if it was a glove or something, and I said, if I sold this, I bet you I could get Lisa McClellan a little help, maybe get her $100 or something, and it just kind of snowballed from there. I mean, people send me stuff. People actually see me online. They ask me for my address. They send me gloves and signed gloves and pictures and all kinds of things. So I'm constantly just auctioning stuff off. And I'll tell you what, about 2 years ago, I had a belt, a guy named Milton Luban. I'll give him a nice shout out. He's got a website called Icons of Boxing. He deals in not just boxing, but memorabilia. And, he can get anybody. He's got Carl Weathers, Sylvester Stallone. I mean, he can get anybody. And so he gave me a belt, a WBC belt. And so I brought it to one of my events, and I remember I had Marlon Starling, I had Lamont Brewster, Junior Jones, Mark Breland, I remember Barkley. I had all kinds of guys sign this belt. I put it up for auction, and a girl from, I think she's from Utah or something, she paid $1,900 for it. And we gave the money to Wilfred Benitez and Gerald McClellan. So it's just basically what I do sometimes when I get the opportunity. I sell the merchandise and raise money for, and also for Pritchard Colon, who was hurt in a fight a few years ago, and his mother takes care of him.
Very nice, John. So I wanted to kind of share that with the audience. We do have a pretty loyal boxing following out there, so I wanted to get that out there before we started.
Thank you.
So Sean Porter, Iceman, rejects a $1 million fight with Crawford, saying that they're lowballing him. What do you feel about that?
Well, I mean, the thing is this. There's several things come into play. Two things that come to mind. One, when people hear, say, $1 million, it sounds like a lot of money, but it's not a lot of money for that level of fight when you chop it up and all the people who get their money out of it, including the IRS, that money is not that much. In many instances, a fighter will basically make, before they take the taxes out, so not including the taxes, a fighter will basically make 57% of what he makes, because he can give 33% to a manager and 10% to a trainer. So now that's before the IRS gets their cut. So $1 million is not $1 million, period. But the other thing is this: a lot of times, subconsciously, I guess, when people hear, they say, "Oh, so and so scared to fight so and so," and "Oh, he doesn't want to fight so and so." Listen, fighters will fight for free. You know what I mean? But it's the managers and the promoters. I mean, there's a lot of people behind a fighter that have an interest and have a financial interest, and they've risked a lot of money. So they're making the decision. They're telling the fighter, "Listen, relax. You're going to get the fight. We'll get the fight in a year from now. We'll get the fight in 6 months from now, or it's not worth it, or I got this working. I got this for you in the background." I mean, there's so many things going on. It's business. And it's not the fighter, because I'm sure, look, Sean Porter is not afraid. He'll fight anybody. He's not worried about it. But his people are trying to maximize his earning potential, and that's what's happening. It's business before it's a sport, 100%.
Okay. So they have Lomachenko wants to fight Gervonta Davis, or Gervonta Davis to Tank Davis, anyway, I should say. He wants to fight him next, after 2 surgeries in the last 2 years. Could this be a disaster if Lomachenko tries to take on Tank?
I mean, who knows? I mean, you know what? He could have had a bad night against Lopez. It might have just been a bad night. He might still be as awesome as he was before that fight. Who knows? That's why they fight the fight. You have to go through them and see him. I still think Lomachenko is good. I mean, very good. He's still the same guy. That was just, Lopez fought an unbelievable fight. The game plan, he was big. Tank. One thing, Tank's not big like Lopez is. So I still like Lomachenko. I still believe in him. I'm not ready to write him off yet. So we'll see.
If we talk about Lomachenko and include him in the big 5 with Teofimo Lopez, Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, Tank Davis, the one guy who's never challenged at all by any of the big 5 is Devin Haney. You never hear anyone saying, "I want to fight Devin Haney," but all of them seem to be saying they want to fight one another, at least a couple of them. The name's always surfacing, but none of the other 4 ever saying they want to fight Devin Haney.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if Devin. I don't know the details in terms of if Devin, as good as he is, I don't know if he's as lucrative. Maybe,
I
yeah.
I
I
think
don't know.
no, I think because he's as good as he is.
Yeah,
Okay, I
right.
mean
That's what I'm saying. But he's got to be
Lomachenko.
lucrative also.
Yeah, I see the point right now. Yeah, that makes sense on the surface. So Ryan Garcia, how lucrative is he right now? Even though he had that big win over Luke Campbell, and yeah, it makes sense. Well, everyone wants to fight Manny Pacquiao. He's at the end of the line
Right.
probably, and he's lucrative, so that makes sense. So,
Right.
yeah.
Big,
Right.
very big name. The styles between Davis and Lomachenko, though, Iceman, is that mainly just the power puncher versus the boxer, or are they closer than that together in their styles?
Yeah, I would say. I mean, like I say, if at his best, I think Lomachenko is the superior boxer. But Tank is, and Tank. One thing I think Tank is a good puncher, obviously, and he's starting to be one of those guys that falls in love with that. I think he's gonna like the knockout. He's one of those guys that loves the knockout, and people expect it of him, which could be a detriment to him. It's been a detriment to a lot of guys over the years who fell victim to always expecting the explosive knockout. And one thing Lomachenko has shown that he can win different ways. He can do many different things. So like I say, I'm not ready to write Lomachenko off based on that last fight. It was it was a very bad performance for him. But I'm not gonna write him off and say that he's done or anything like that. I wouldn't favor a lot of people over him other than Lopez.
Well, you're so right, John, what you mentioned before about the different promotional entities preventing fights from taking place. In the case what Mac mentioned to start off with Joshua and Fury, they have different promoters. But the thing
Right.
about it is with Joshua's promoter, Eddie Hearn, if they don't fight Tyson Fury, they've got to fight Alexander Usyk. And the rewards there aren't much. There's a much bigger risk than it's worth going after the reward. So now they'll come to the table and make a 2-fight deal with Tyson Fury. Because even if they lose both fights, it's 2 massive paydays. And if they win one fight, great. The band keeps on playing. So, and all those lightweights I mentioned before, they have different promoters. I mean, Lomachenko and Teofimo Lopez have Bob Arum as their promoter, but Ryan Garcia has Golden Boy. Devon Haney has Matchroom. Gervonta Davis has Mayweather Promotions. So it makes it very complicated to make these fights.
And that's why I hate the business of boxing. I don't even really follow it because I'm kind of like the person where like I see people talk a lot about like what we're talking about, like the backroom stuff and Matchroom said this, and I don't even know who's promoted by who. I have no idea. Like I don't even follow it. I'm not when the negotiations are going on in fights, I don't even pay attention. I don't know how much they make. I have no idea how much anybody has made. Like it seems like a lot of boxing fans online, they'll tell you like, oh, so and so made $3 million for that fight and he made $5 million for this fight. I have no idea what they make. I don't care what they make. I just wait until the fights are made. Because the business of boxing is so frustrating and irritating and annoying that I don't even get involved.
Yeah, but John, that's what's in the news because there's no boxing. I mean, if there was more matches and there was more fights, so they kind of they hit themselves with their own hand because what else is there to talk about when you don't have the big fights fighting except why they're not fighting? So that's
I don't talk about it.
So
I don't talk about it.
So I'm going to get your opinion on this, and this again is a little bit about the business. And I want to know if you think this is fair. Arum has a problem promoting Crawford, and they want the 50-50 split with Spence. And, of course, Spence says that's way too much. Do you think Spence is right in saying that he wants a 60-40 or a 70-30 split because, he's the one that they want?
I think he's accurate in that it's demand. Like people think subconsciously, I guess, because Crawford is so good, they think he deserves more money. And not just him, but anybody. A guy is so good, he deserves that money. You being good means nothing. You having people watch you is the only thing that matters. Daffy Duck. If 2 million people tuned in to watch Daffy Duck fight somebody, Daffy Duck's gonna make huge money. And that's the thing. People get clouded with the money. Just because you make a lot of money doesn't mean you're even the best fighter. It doesn't mean that at all. It means that you're the guy that people like to see. And then sometimes, like with Mayweather, it's both. You're very good and they want to see you. But Crawford, I mean, it's a different era. Crawford could walk into gyms, I know, and some of the people in the gym wouldn't even know who he is. And Spence too, for that matter. But these guys aren't as well known by the masses as they probably think. They're known by hardcore boxing people and internet people that are on the internet. But they're not visible like they used to be. And I'll tell you what, even like I remember being in a gym, just as an example. A few years back, I was in a gym and I brought a picture of certain high profile fighters, and I did a video along with it. I said, just out of curiosity, and I brought, including Mayweather, and I brought their pictures into the gym with you didn't know who they were. It just had just their face. And I showed it to about 20 people, and I said, name these people. And the majority of the people had no idea who these guys were. Even Floyd. A lot of people they didn't know that was Floyd Mayweather. They heard of Floyd Mayweather, but when I showed them just a picture of his face, they couldn't tell me who it was. It was the craziest thing.
What a difference! What a difference it has become since when I was watching boxing a long time ago. You knew
Right.
who the big fighters were. And again, John, I think that's this is where they're at now, where if you're going to wait to fight and you're only going to fight people who you want and there's no boxing out there, it just comes back and bites them, because how can you get popular if you don't fight a lot? So it's just, right. To me, it's a vicious circle that somebody's got to stop. So there's negotiations between Golovkin, and I hope I'm saying this right.
Not a Golovkin.
Right, and Munguia.
Triple G. Just call him Triple G.
How about the other one, Jack? Help me out here. Munguia, am I saying it right?
Yeah, Jamie Munguia,
right.
however.
Some of them boxing
that's actually a bit of an intriguing fight right now.
Yes.
Golovkin in his prime would have taken Munguia apart. I mean, no ifs or buts about it, but the Golovkin and now, you can't be so sure, right, John? Hasn't he hit a stage where just about anyone of quality could upset him, of quality?
Right. I think, Triple G's turned a corner, point of no return. There was a time, and I think people are going to forget, like he was a destroyer. I mean, he would dissect people. Like he was a vicious guy, but it's been a while. It's been quite a while, since he was in his really heyday. So now he's gonna fall sooner or later. And I don't mean knock out, but I mean he's gonna lose sooner or later to someone.
John, tell me something. I don't understand the logic behind this, behind Canelo's thinking. Golovkin has slipped enough, and we saw that when he fought Sergey Deverchenko. He just barely got by in that fight. He slipped enough that if he's going to fight Canelo now, Triple G's not getting better. Chances are Canelo beats him this time, and this time beats him clearly, unlike the draw in the first fight, which he probably lost, and his victory in the second fight, which probably should have been called a draw. But why doesn't Canelo just go in and take care of business against Triple G? Everyone wants to see that fight. It's not that risky a fight compared to what it was before. And he's going to get the massive payday he wants at a lower risk than before. I just don't understand. Canelo putting that fight off.
Yeah, sometimes I think in situations like this, they might know that they're going to take the fight, but maybe they kind of let the guy sweat it out a little bit. They let the guy, get insulted a little bit, kind of demoralize him, let him age a little bit more, and then fight him. I've seen that happen before at different times. It could be that. But yeah, they're guys going in different directions. I mean, Canelo's improving. Like, he's actually gotten better the last couple fights.
And the
much more
odd man now is Demetrius Andrade, whose
Yeah.
years are being wasted.
It's he's Demetrius might be the worst managed fighter in history ever. Like, it's bizarre. Nobody knows who Demetrius. I don't care what you say. Demetrius Andrade, nobody knows who this kid is. And he's good. He's very good. He's very talented. But nobody knows who he is. And except hardcore, boxing fans. So there's no demand for him at all. Like, nobody cares if he fights or not. And
I think he's too good for his own good. It's too much a risk to fight him, and the rewards and the payday doesn't make it worth it.
Right.
Hey, John,
yeah.
I'm interested in Munguia, okay? From what I read, 36-0, former middleweight champion. How come I don't see this guy on TV or even hear him mentioned a lot as far as a person that should be up for, the middleweight champ again? If this guy is really that good, why isn't there more press about this guy?
It's a funny thing. Just some guys catch on, some don't. For whatever reason. And he just hasn't caught on yet. Nobody's, it's up to the media in a big way to help him catch on. Make this guy big. Even Triple G and they got big because there was a push for them. And I don't really know why, but there has not been a push for Munguia.
Well, that is, John. I think when Munguia burst onto the scene, he knocked out Saddam Ali to win a title.
Yeah.
And people were asking, who is this guy? He looks sensational. He looked like the next big star in boxing. But the problem was, after that, he continued to win, but he continued to win decisions. He didn't look particularly good. So even though they say the name of the game is, like Al Davis used to say in football, just win, baby, that wasn't doing it for Munguia. So he kind of lost his star quality at some point along the way, even though he never lost the fight along the way. So if he beats Triple G and stops him, he gets the star quality back, and then they're going to talk about matching him with Canelo in a big fight. So some guys they lose it along the way with performances that are less than scintillating. Speaking of along the way, Mac always asks this, and I tell him to cool it once in a while. Artur Beterbiev. What's going on with Artur Beterbiev finally? I mean,
well, he got the COVID, so he's out of commission. But he's basically getting back into training right now. Like, COVID can't hold him down. But I don't know in terms of the next fight now. I have no idea.
Well, Sergey Kovalev fights at the end of the month, and assuming he wins, him and Artur in Russia, I guess, would be a big thing for the country there. That would be my guess.
Yeah, but like I can't see Kovalev doing anything with Artur. I think Artur at this point massacres Kovalev.
Well, Kovalev might take it to cash out.
Yeah, man. I figured I chose Artur to beat Kovalev at any point, but now psychologically, everything. I just don't see it. And there's a little backstory. They fought as amateurs, and Artur beat him, and they don't like each other on a personal level. They're from the same area, and I guess there was a time when they asked Kovalev, when Kovalev was champion and Artur was coming up, and they asked Kovalev, is there anybody? They were trying to push Artur a little bit, and they said, oh, anybody in your area, coming up, it's going to be good. Arthur, and he said, Arthur, he's okay. He's not that good. And Arthur took it really, really personal.
Well, that's what
so-
Max says about me normally when they ask him about his co-host.
John, again, I want to thank you for coming in. I enjoy your spot every week. You're a great guest, a great knowledgeable. You're down to earth. You say it like it is. So hopefully we get you back on next week, John, and have you back on Thursday for your spot because people love it. So you have a great day and keep up the great work, John.
Thanks,
guys.
John. Happy New Year.
Thank you. So there you go. Iceman John Scully is out. We have Carter backstage. We're going to take a quick break, Carter. A quick break so that we can gather ourselves and get ready for your great hockey coverage that I enjoy every week. So,
There's
guys,
more fighting in hockey than boxing sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes there really is. So we'll take a quick couple-minute break. We'll be right up with Carter with his NHL report. Stick with us, guys. We'll be right back.
If you serve honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Infoline. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
We all make choices. When it comes to alcohol, kids make choices whether to drink or not.
Bye, Dad.
Bye-bye.
Remember, I'm going to Alex's party tonight and sleeping over.
Hey, have a seat for a second. Remind me about that party again?
Alex is just
And adults make choices whether to talk about it. That's true of parents and every other trusted adult in a kid's life. Kids want to know our expectations when it comes to alcohol and other drugs. They want guidance and honest answers to their questions. And it makes a difference when the message is consistent and part of everyday conversations. So talk with your kids and help lead them on a positive path. Because when you talk, they hear you. For more information about talking with your kids about underage use of alcohol and other drugs, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Now we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. 0 tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're on live, 8 to 10 a.m., Wednesday through Sunday. And Jack, we just had a great guest that we always have on every week, Iceman, John Scully, who gives us all our boxing information. And we're going to bring up Carter here, who gives us our NHL update. But I want to introduce him, as I do every week, with not that one, not that one, but this one, Jack. I mean, that's a great song too. But to bring Carter up, we got to do it right, Jack. So let's get it going.
Mac, why don't you just get him on, Mac? Come on. I mean, Carter's great, but it's not like he's a national personality.
Oh, Jack, let it go.
This is insulting to an old timer like me.
You think it's insulting, Jack? I think it's great.
Come on, just get him up.
Okay, we'll bring him on.
Like it's a 911 call.
Listen, Carter deserves a great introduction. Carter, I got another hockey song that I'm working on. It's kind of crazy though. I mean, it's like a punk group or heavy metal group singing the hockey song. So we'll have that when we get into full coverage of hockey coming up soon. Pleasure having you on every week. You do a great job for us breaking down the NHL, the Northeast teams. First of all, before we get to that, Carter, what got you interested in broadcasting and podcasting and talking about hockey? Can you hear me, Carter?
Well, for me, Mac, I was privileged enough to be able to take a class in high school. And, my local high school had a radio station, and they let students just kind of go on the air and host whatever shows they wanted. And I knew from the minute that I was on that Sachem radio station that I wanted to do this for the rest of my life.
Wow, excellent. And hockey, did you play hockey, Carter?
Yeah, I've played hockey. I'm 19 now, almost 20. I've been playing hockey for around 8 years now. So it's always been a big part of my life. And everyone in my family is a big hockey fan too. So it helps that I can talk to them about anything that's going on in the NHL or anything that's going on in my hockey life too.
That's excellent, Carter. Great. Carter, today we're breaking down the Buffalo Sabres. Now, if I'm correct, they've never won a Stanley Cup, if I read it right. But they're always get out to a quick start. From what I see, their head coach is Ralph Kruger. I guess their best player is Captain Jack Eichel. Am I saying it right, Carter? Or Eichel?
Jack Eichel.
Jack Eichel?
Yeah.
Okay. And this year they have a decent draft, I guess, if you can consider that. Jack Quinn, John Pateka were two of their top draft choices. Do you see them competing this year better than they did last year?
Well, Mac, if I'm looking at Jack Quinn anyway, I mean, the World Juniors just happened recently, and for those of you who don't know what the World Juniors is, it's the biggest junior hockey tournament in the world. This is where all the top prospects and draft-eligible prospects for the next year's draft go to prove themselves and prove to NHL GMs, hey, I can play with some of these elite prospects and I can make the NHL and make an impact on your team. And when I'm looking at Jack Quinn, he played for a really, really good team. Granted, he was only playing in the middle six, but I mean, personally, he only posted a single goal and just 4 assists in 7 games. 5 points in 7 games isn't too bad, but for where he was taken, I mean, he was an 8th overall pick, so maybe I expected him to, post a little bit more. That being said, I mean, this was also his first World Juniors tournament ever, so I'd imagine there was a bit of nerves and rust to shake off. I mean, but Mac, let me tell you right now, this kid can score goals like nobody's business. He put up 52 goals and 89 points this past season in the OHL, and if I'm being honest, I don't know if Jack Quinn's going to make the Sabres out of camp this year. Buffalo brought in guys like Taylor Hall and Eric Stahl over the course of this past offseason. So if I had to guess, I wouldn't put Jack Quinn on the Sabres roster this year, although I guess anything is possible. moving on to JJ Paterka, he actually really impressed me for Team Germany at this year's World Juniors as well. And, granted, uh, Team Germany was actually hit by a mini COVID outbreak, so they were shorthanded for a majority of the tournament. But Paterka was absolutely lights out. He was on that top line with Ottawa Senators draft pick Tim Stützle, along with 2021 eligible drafted prospect Florian Elias. And, Paterka and Quinn have a lot of similarities to their games. They're both they both shoot really, really well. And, again, similar to Jack Quinn, considering he was drafted this past year, I wouldn't exactly expect him to make the team right away. However, I mean, a guy like JJ Paterka managed to turn a lot of heads with his performance at the World Juniors, and I truly believe that down the road, this could be looked at as one of the steals of the draft. I love this pick for Buffalo.
But wasn't Quinn drafted 8th and Paterka 34th? And Paterka was said to have slipped in the draft. Buffalo supposedly was surprised they were able to get him when they did.
Yeah, Jack, supposedly Paterka was actually slated at first to go in either the middle or the late first round. So considering Buffalo managed to snatch him at 34, that's an incredible spot to even be able to pick him at, right? And, I do like the Jack Quinn pick for Buffalo again. I mean, he scored 52 goals this past season. Who wouldn't want a 52 goal scorer on their
Right.
team, even if it is in junior? I really like Paterka just because, he brings some of that physicality that I think Buffalo needs in some of their forwards. I think, looking at Jack Eichel anyway, he's more of a finesse player. You look at Jack Eichel to provide, flashy goals, whether it's dangling around somebody or, general amazing player. And with Paterka, you get some of that skill, but at the same time, you're getting a lot of physicality. And that's why I really like this pick.
But wouldn't it be a blow to Jack Quinn's confidence if he doesn't make the team and Paterka does, considering their draft positions?
I wouldn't say so. I think most of the time when it comes to draft prospects, it kind of, if there's another player on the roster that, is more fit to play in the NHL, I guess you could say, it might be a little bit of a bummer. But I think at the same time, when you're in the NHL, when you're in any professional sport, you're just focusing on yourself and what you can do in order to make the team. And, I think, if Jack Quinn were to make the team and Paterka didn't make it, I think Paterka would, maybe be a little bit bummed out that he didn't make it, like I just said. But again, I think at the end of the day, it's all about what you can do at a personal level. And I think both of these guys are great competitors. And honestly, I see them both making the team within the next year or two.
So what do you think the reason is, Carter, that Buffalo seems to get out fast in the beginning of the year, and then they fall back? Is that their physical training they have there? Is that because the other teams are just starting to get warmed up? I mean, why does a team that gets out to the fast start like that ends up at 30 and 31 and 8 at the end of the year?
Mac, if I knew, I would tell you, but honestly, I have absolutely no idea. It seems like the Sabres get out to a hot start every year, and they just can't manage to put it together at the rest of the season. I mean, the only thing I can think of is maybe they burn themselves out over the course of that short run, but honestly, I don't have the slightest idea as to why the Sabres fall out near the end of the season. The one thing that I do like about this shortened season, though, is the fact that it's only 56 games, right? If you're looking at the 56 game mark from last season anyway, Buffalo would have made the playoffs if the season was cut off at 56. So I think if the Sabres can get out to another hot start this season, their division is really, really tough. It's really competitive, but we could see them make a return if they're able to put a few wins together.
The Sabres fired their GM, Jason Botterill, for a number of questionable moves. Supposedly, he was starting a youth movement with the Sabres, which didn't quite work out. But isn't this a situation where time will tell? When you're putting a lot of young players on your roster like that, it takes a couple of more years to really see whether or not that pays dividends. Can you imagine these players take off? I mean, what's Botterill's legacy going to be, at Buffalo then?
Well, Jack, I don't think Jason Botterill's legacy in Buffalo is going to be a very good one, considering he traded Ryan O'Reilly to the Blues, and The year after he got traded to St. Louis, he won the Stanley Cup and he won playoff MVP. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's necessarily going to go down as the biggest, the best trade in Sabres history. But when you're looking at a youth movement, it's not just in Buffalo; it's really around any team, and not just the NHL, but in sports, as both know this, that a youth movement isn't always a good thing, and it's also not always a bad thing. Again, it's a guessing game. No matter where the player was drafted, it's not always guaranteed that they're gonna be able to replicate what they did in juniors into the NHL. That being said, I mean, Buffalo does have a lot of youth on their roster. I really liked some of the veteran moves that they brought in. Like I said before, Taylor Hall and Eric Stahl both brought in to Buffalo for the season. I really think that the youth movement, despite the fact that it maybe have been a bit of a flop on Botterill's part, I like the Jack Quinn picks and I like the JJ Paterka pick. They still have Dylan Cousins, who's a spectacular prospect who I could see making the team this year. I really think that Buffalo's youth movement is going to take them a long way. But again, Jack, it's really a guessing game as to.
A guessing game prediction. Do they break the playoff drought this year?
It's going to be tough. If they do, it's not going to be easy. I'll tell you that. And I'm going to be honest. I don't think they do. I don't see them being as bad as they were in the past years. But if I had to guess, I mean, it's top 4 teams in each division that make the playoffs. I could see the Sabres finishing 5th. That's how good I think these guys are, but I think they're just going to miss out.
Tell us a little bit about their goalies, Carter. Of course, we know to compete at the top level, you got to have a top level goalie. Are they lacking there? Is that the reason why that they're falling off at the end of the year? That maybe they don't have enough depth or maybe enough talent at goalie?
I don't think it's necessarily the goalies that are the problem, Mac. I think, looking at Buffalo's goalie situation, they have Linus Ullmark and Carter Hutton. I'm not sure if you guys know who those guys are. I don't think a lot of hockey fans know who they are. But I think at the end of the day, it's not really about the name and net that matters. It's more about, how they develop with the goalie development coaches and how they perform
No, the left
on
wing
the ice,
Jeff,
and underrated netminders.
the left wing Jeff
Sorry?
Skinner. Some people think he's going to wage a little bit of a comeback. Is that about one of the worst contracts in the NHL, Jeff Skinner's? He has about 6 more years left on an extension he signed.
Yeah, it's a massive contract, and to tell you the truth, I liked the Jeff Skinner contract at first only because he was a 40 goal scorer, and he seemed to work so well alongside Jack Eichel and perfect. And this past season, he fell off. He only scored 14 points, and I don't know if I would label it as one of the worst in the league just yet. I think if Skinner has another lackluster season this year, maybe you can begin to panic a little bit. But a lot of people seem to forget that. Sorry, keep going.
Did they play him with Eichel last year?
They played him with Eichel to start. Yeah, they played him with Eichel to start. I think maybe they saw him struggling a little bit, and I think they decided to move him down in the lineup after that. Maybe that's why his production took a bit of a hit. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I don't see this as anything to panic about if I'm a Sabres fan. Again, I think if maybe he has another lackluster season this time around, then maybe it's time to worry a little bit. But I'm still a big believer in Jeff Skinner, and I still think he can get it done.
Okay, so you would think that a team from Buffalo would have a very good hockey team just because they're up there in the north and it's cold. I mean, I would think that of course it matters who you draft and who you pick up and all that stuff. But just being from Buffalo, you think of the Canadians and that, and they're up in the cold north and they've had a great history. But Buffalo has yet to get there. Carter, we got 2 more teams to break down before. We may be breaking down the last one when hockey starts. Are they still starting January 13th? From what
yes, they're still slated to start January 13th.
All the games going to be played on the home ice of the it depends on the individual team. So the Sabres, all their games going to be played, their home games in Buffalo.
Yeah, I think as of right now, I think the goal that the NHL wants for every team is they want to play on their home ice. I think looking at each home arena anyway, it depends on, what their local governments are allowing as to whether or not they'll be allowing fans. If we're narrowing in on Buffalo in particular, I don't think they're going to allow fans this year. However, Governor Cuomo just approved that they're going to allow fans at the Bills playoff games. So could it mean that we're going to allow fans at sporting events in New York indoors anyway? I
Well,
think it's
he's only allowing 6,500 fans on an
right.
outdoor stadium. So is there any possibility, as crazy as this seems, the Sabres could be playing outdoors in Buffalo?
I don't see it happening, Jack. I think
Kind of cold.
not even that. I think the financial cost would just be too much
Yeah.
for the Sabres to handle. And the NHL lost money this past year because of the pandemic and being shut down. So I really don't see that as being a possibility. It would be cool to see, and I would love to see it personally, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Sure. So as I said, we got 2 more teams to cover. We got the Rangers still on deck, and we still got the New Jersey Devils on deck. So I'll get with you. We'll keep it a surprise till you come on, so that we kind of tease the viewers with that. Again, Carter, great job. Loving having you on. Very knowledgeable. You're teaching me things. You're getting me back into hockey, which I left. I left because the Rangers left. I mean, the Whalers left Hartford, and that to me was my drop-off point as a hockey fan, which I used to follow. The Whalers, the Rangers, the Islanders, and all the cool teams.
And Carter, I'm getting reintroduced to hockey. An old timer like me goes back to when they had 6 teams, when I knew all the players on all the teams, because there were 6 teams, and then I kind of lost my way with all this expansion, after a while. I go back to when I was a little kid, the days of Bobby Hall, Stan Mikita, Jean Bellevue,
Yeah.
glory years. Yeah, but
yeah, when they didn't
around today.
They didn't have indoor hockey then,
The
Carter.
Golden
That was
Jet
the old
Bobby-
days.
Golden Jet Bobby Orr. I mean, come on.
Yes. So anyway, Carter, thank you again. Like I said, your knowledge is great. I know what a team fan you are of one of the teams, but all your breakdown of the team so far has been spot on. We love having you on, and hope to see you again next week, Carter.
Take care, Carter.
Thanks, guys. And Mac, I think I prefer the first intro over the second one just for future reference. So maybe we'll have to work on that in the near future.
Max,
Okay, maybe I'll put on that new song we got next week, Carter. We'll see. You have a great day, my friend.
Take care, Carter.
So there you go, Jack. Carter B covering the hockey with his hockey coverage. He does a fantastic job.
I'm
he knows
excited
a lot
about us doing hockey, Mac. I never thought
I know, right? I mean,
excited about it. We're getting into it. We're giving it to the fans here. Baseball,
Yeah,
football, basketball, hockey, boxing, wrestling. I'm waiting for you, Mac, to start. Get us an auto racer, Mac.
Auto racing.
Get us an auto racer. Get us a jockey. I know you can do it, Mac. I have no connections at all for that. None.
Well, I figure,
it, Mac. I have faith in you.
I figure, maybe cricket next week. We'll see, Jack. I mean,
cricket, let's do it all.
What's better than a cricket game on a Sunday, Jack? There's nothing better in the world than that. So, Jack, every day I have one of my favorite segments I do with you. I got a lot of favorite segments, but this is one of my favorites. So, Jack, it's time for the daily. The daily trivia question, Jack, and this is where I try to stump your great and large mind in the world of sports. So, Jack, what I got for you in this week's trivia question, it's a football question. And it goes like this. Who is the only person in the NFL to have won a Super Bowl as a player, as an assistant coach, and as a head coach?
I actually think I know the answer to this. Could I be wrong? I believe it was Tom Flores. Was he a backup quarterback? I know he was head coach of the Raiders when they won the Super Bowl. I know he was an NFL quarterback. I believe he was a backup quarterback with Raiders too, and I don't remember him as an assistant coach. But let me think. Tom Flores pops into my head immediately.
Good guess. Good guess.
Immediately. But wow. A coach, an assistant coach, and as a player.
Right.
I'm doing a quick scan. You know what? I have these cleanup scans from Super Bowl I upward. The head coaches in my head very quickly, but there's not enough time to do it all. Oh, I know the answer.
Okay.
Better answer than that. Tony Dungy.
That is
Tony Dungy was wanted as a coach. Wait a second. Did Tony Dungy win it as a player? No, I can't remember point blank. Let me go with Flores, Tom Flores.
These are great guesses, Jack, but both completely wrong. And when I tell you, you're going to hit yourself in the head, Jack. It was Mike Ditka.
Mike Ditka, of course.
Yes. So,
but the funny, right. When I was doing the scan, he was with the Dallas Cowboys as a player. Now with the Bears when they won the Super Bowl, head coach of the Bears. I don't remember Iron Mike Ditka as an assistant coach for some reason. I just don't remember. Was he an assistant coach with the Cowboys under Tom Landry?
Yes, he was, Jack.
Assistant coach with the Bears. He was an assistant under Tom Landry. Tom Flores, I don't remember him as an assistant coach either, but I know he was a quarterback, a backup quarterback. And I thought he was a backup quarterback with one of the Raider teams before they won the Super Bowl, before he coached them as a head coach.
Yeah, that's very
interesting. Wow.
So,
okay, I mean, listen.
I knew when I told you the answer that you would say, yeah, that makes sense because, of course, Mike Ditka, All Pro, Hall of Fame tight end, and also the coach.
But Mike Ditka, when you first think of Mike Ditka, you have to detour. You think of him as a Chicago Bear all the time. He's a great Bear player and as a head coach on that legendary team. But you don't think of him as a player for the Dallas Cowboys, which he was on one of their Super Bowl winning teams. But that's not really part of his legacy that we think about.
You're exactly right, Jack.
Very good question, Mac. Very good question. Tony Dungy, I don't know why it popped into my head because he was a heck of a player, Super Bowl winning coach. But then I thought I couldn't remember him being on a Super Bowl win as a player.
Those were two good guesses. Those were two real good guesses, Jack.
I would have stuck with. I would have really felt Tom Flores. Yeah.
So, Jack, we're going to take our last break for the day. We got a lot of stuff still to get through. So it'll be a quick break, folks. Stay with us, and you'll have a lot more sports coming your way. So stick with us.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvets.org.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma. I love you too.
Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, or persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get the facts. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 Info Line. Message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed. Yeah, well, Kyle's not here. How come? Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Found some other kids like Martin and Bear in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. Zero Tyler. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of people don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
Try.
Good morning, and welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. I'm your host, Mac, with your co-host, Jack. We're here live every Wednesday through Sunday, 8 to 10 a.m., Jack, and trying to give as much sports coverage as we can in our 2 hours, minus the breaks, which we need to get ourselves back together and get back on track and do what we got to do behind the scenes. We love that you're following us. A few things I want to take care of before we push on. Jack, of course, we are on Northeast Streaming Sports. That's a new network that we're on to go along with our show. It's a great network, a bunch of podcasts put together just for you to come over and check them all out. We're also on Spotify. We just got on Spotify, so you can listen to us and while you're in your car or at work. So we'll be on Spotify from here on out, Jack, for the people that don't have the time in the morning to listen to us. So we're on a lot of different places where we got a great website if you want to go over and check it out, folks, where we have our Wall of Fame. You get information on the shows on Northeast Streaming Sports, a little bit of bio on all of our weekly guests, including Jack Hirsch, what he's done in his career, which is pretty impressive. So if you get a chance, folks, go on over and check out our website at macandjacksports.com. So, Jack, we got a few more segments.
Mac, I just want to say I threw the red flag down during the intermission. When the show's over, I'm going to check into Tom Flores to see. I'm not convinced my answer was wrong. Not convinced, but I'm going to check on the proof whether he indeed, as head coach, as a backup quarterback of the Raiders, whether he was on the Super Bowl win or not. Something tells me he was. I'm not certain about it. Maybe if one of our viewers could let us know in the meantime. But but whatever. I'm a sore loser. But
definitely check it out, Jack, because I want to make sure the question is accurate. The only thing that I might say to that is that if he was a backup player, he didn't actually play in the Super Bowl. What I would say in my defense, in case I'm
played in the Super Bowl, a Super Bowl winning team.
A Super Bowl as a player, won a Super Bowl as a player.
But if he didn't play, he was a player on the roster.
Yeah, that might be a technical.
We'll look it up and we'll talk a little more about it.
Oh, definitely.
Flat out wrong, I won't mention it again.
That's fine, Jack.
line. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. So, Jack, I want to give people, not that one, but I want to give them this one. This is my thought for the day, Jack. So this is the great music for it too, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm a little out there on my thoughts. So for today's thought for the day, folks, if I can get to that right now, put up that banner. I want to talk a little bit about, Jack, about how not to tank. You know, we've had a lot of news about Philadelphia possibly tanking. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. Maybe Jacksonville did. But we know there are teams out there that don't have a shot at getting in the playoffs and maybe don't play their starters, or maybe don't try. The organization doesn't try as hard as it should to play the game all out. So as a coach, Jack, of course, I wanted to win every game. As a player, I wanted to win every game. I didn't care what my record was. And what Doug Peterson decided to do, and maybe what other teams decide to do by resting their players or taking a look at some of their backups that they know won't help them win, there is something you can do about it, Jack. You can make it so that the teams with the worst record in these different sports, whether it's NBA, football, basket, hockey, whatever, that at the end of the year, if they have the worst record, they don't get the first pick. And what I mean by that is that the team with the best losing record, in other words, if you don't make the playoffs, but your record is good enough that you should have made the playoffs or that you just missed the playoffs, you get the first pick. I think this would stop the teams at the end of the year that are trying to do their best to get the first round draft pick would stop doing that, and that they would try to fight to win that last game or the last couple of games a little bit harder, or there would be put more emphasis on winning that last few games so that they could get the first round draft pick. What do you think, Jack?
I disagree, Mac, because teams could do the same thing. Let's say if they have a 6-9 record going into the final game of the season, look at the Minnesota Vikings. If they had a shot at getting Trevor Lawrence, for example, it was a meaningless game against the Lions. Okay, you get a lot of teams that are 5-10, 6-9, 7-8. And if they have a franchise quarterback, then they need a quarterback. They could do the same thing as a team with no wins. I like what the NBA does. They have kind of a draft lottery, so you're not guaranteed of getting the number one pick. Like the year, I mean, the NBA's got it the right way, too. But I don't think, on reflection, I don't think any of these teams are tanking. Like even the Eagle game, now that we cooled off a little, Nate Sudfeld, that's their third string quarterback. He's been in the NFL a few years. So obviously, he was drafted number 6 by the Washington Redskins. That's a late pick. Guys like that a lot of times get cut. But he's hung around a few years as a third string quarterback. And so did the coach to a degree tank the game by putting it in? Did he try everything he could to win the game by not leaving Jalen Hurts? And no, of course. He didn't do everything he could to win the game. But the players on the field were doing everything they could to win the game. So it's a very sticky situation. Listen, Mac, you could look at it another way. You could reward a team with the best record with the number one pick and let them pick on the order from number 1 on down. I mean, imagine the Kansas City Chiefs with the first pick with Trevor Lawrence. They would trade that pick for a lot of draft choices. So maybe we should reward teams for victories, but the whole idea is competitive balance, help the worst teams, get on an even playing field with the others. There's no 100% good solution to this, but the way the NFL's doing it now, I mean, I don't think it's bad. I don't think it's bad.
I just think that even if you look at it parity-wise, Jack, you still got the same good teams winning and the same bad teams losing for the most part. I mean, there are teams that improve with their draft picks.
Look at Mac. Teams make deals. Look at the Miami Dolphins. They're picking number 3 overall.
Right. Right. So, yeah, maybe so, Jack. I just think that, you shouldn't reward somebody, an organization, for not trying the best they can. And teams at the end of the year, a lot of them don't. So I was just thinking of a way that maybe they could make them fight
But
and give us.
Mac, take the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Right.
Maybe not the last couple of games. I don't know how hard the coaching staff was trying. But then again, Doug Marrone got fired, their head coach.
Right.
So
Right.
why would
Right.
he want to tank if he's getting fired? Okay,
Right.
he's not reaping the rewards. And the Jacksonville Jaguars lost a lot of close games during the year. It just didn't happen. Had they won a couple of those close games, they wouldn't be getting this pick. And the Jets certainly, I mean, say what you want about Adam Gase. They didn't tank throughout the year. At least they tried with their limitations and personnel, and they did pull a massive upset over the LA Rams.
Very true. Jack, we were scheduled to have a guest from the host of the Swisher Show from Military Radio Broadcasting on with us today, but he ended up in the emergency room. So hopefully he's okay and, health or quick recovery or whatever happened there.
Yeah, we wish him the best.
Right, exactly. Jack, we got a little extra time. So I do want to talk about somebody that you know personally. And the first middleweight championship fight I actually sat down and watched. It was close to when I watched the first heavyweight champion I ever did, which was, of course, the fight of the century, Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali. But I watched Vito Antuofermo fight Marvin Hagler before Marvin Hagler became the world champion. And he, at the time, was the world champion. He fought Hagler, fought him to a draw. It was an incredible fight to me. Hagler was the more skilled boxer, it looked like to me. But Vito was probably the most determined fighter I ever saw in my life. I mean, he could take shots, and he was a brawler. He did have skill, but he was a determined man when he fought. I saw his fights against Minter, too, where I think he beat Minter the first time, was my opinion when I watched the fight, the great English champion, Minter. But to have that be my first championship fight I watched, I really respected Vito Antuofermo, and I know you know him personally, Jack. So if you could just share some of the thoughts. I understand you actually sparred with this guy at one time.
Well, I was one of his sparring partners in the amateurs, and it was at the Sweeney Center PAL in Brooklyn. I remember this police officer bringing Vito to the gym. In those days, the paperwork wasn't done the same thing. Things were different. Vito was fighting on the street. So the officer gave Vito two options, Joe Dwyer. I'm either going to arrest you, take you to the precinct, to take you to a boxing gym so you could learn how to fight for real and learn how to fight legally. So I'm at the gym when Vito was first brought in to the trainer, Joe LaGuardia, and I'm standing there watching Joe Dwyer make the introduction. And it's like the four of us, Joe LaGuardia, myself, the cop Joe Dwyer, and Vito Antuofermo. And what I basically remember something about it, the cop Joe Dwyer said, well, do the kids at least get their kicks, meaning that they have fun here being at the gym? And Joe LaGuardia saying, yeah, we have a lot of fun. And then I started sparring with Vito, so on. He became a Golden Glove champion. I was no more than a sparring partner. Vito was like an executive at the gym. And I was like one of those guys. I was in awe of him. I'd run, get him the newspaper after one of his Golden Glove wins. That's when the Daily News came out with the night edition as well. Then when Vito eventually left the gym after a couple of years being an amateur, he turned pro. The day of his pro debut at Sunnyside Garden, talk about his fate would have it, I bump into Vito on the subway, on the train, and we're talking about his pro career. And I was periodically in touch with him as he fought as a pro, but then I became a close friend with him years later after he retired. We reconnected, and we're good friends today. We speak on the phone, and Vito vividly remembers so much of his career. The fight you're talking about, Mac, was the Marvin Hagler fight, where Vito had won the world. He had already won the world middleweight championship, beating Hugo Coro for the title. And then he was fighting Marvin Hagler in Las Vegas, and that was on ABC television on a Friday night. And
Right.
that was the fight. There was a doubleheader, Vito and Hagler and Sugar Ray Leonard against Wilfred Benitez for the welterweight
Wow.
title
Right.
to follow
That's
up.
right. That's
Now,
right.
everyone assumed Hagler was going to beat Vito. Nearly everyone. Because Hagler was a monster. Well, Vito fought him tooth and nail, and the fight wound up a draw. Some people are going to say Hagler was robbed, but I checked with Lee Groves. I'm going to have him on as a guest sometimes. He's one of the guys in charge of CompuBox, that punch count you see on the screen, number of punches landed, power punches. So according to CompuBox, over 15 rounds, Hagler landed 23 more punches over 15 rounds. That's only a punch and a half a round. And according to CompuBox, Vito landed a higher percentage of power punches, according
Right.
to the stats. So according to Lee Groves, no, the draw wasn't unfair, the 15-round draw. But one way or another, anyone who could fight Hagler tooth and nail for 15 rounds, and this is a Hagler who was waiting years for his title shot and finally got it and was ready to roll in peak form, yet Vito fought him tooth and nail to a draw. But in Vito's next fight, the second defense, he lost a disputed decision to Alan Minter, an Englishman. I thought Vito, retained this title, even though it was a close fight. But what stuck on my mind about the fight, the judging. They had a judge from the United States, a neutral judge, and they had a judge from Minter's country in England. And Vito knocked Minter down in the 14th round. So obviously he won that round. Well, that was the only round the English judge gave him in the whole fight. It was ludicrous. I mean, talk
Yeah.
about just awful, scoring. I mean, disgraceful.
And from what I understand,
yeah.
From what I understand, Jack, he went on to have an acting career. Is from what I understand, from what I read, a good-looking man. Not after the fight, he wasn't so good-looking because he took a lot of punches and he went in there and he was a stalker. And like I said, Jack, being my first middleweight fight, I mean, just to watch that man go in there and keep pressing people and taking shots and giving shots was one of it always stands out in my mind. He became quickly my favorite fighter after I watched that fight, Jack.
Well, it's funny how he had a role in several movies, The Godfather and Goodfellas. I like to kid him about what he said in Goodfellas because his role was such a short speaking role. He said, "Hey," that's all he said. What happened? The guy Tommy, who was really a tough guy in the movie there, he comes over to the nightclub where Vito's sitting, and Tommy was a killer, would take nothing from anyone. But Tommy sees Vito and he goes, "Hey, Vito." And Vito goes, "Hey." So when I see Vito, we had to have a joke between us. I go, "Hey, Vito." And he goes, "Hey," to me. Like he gives me the line he used in Goodfellas. So we have a little fun with that. And also how he got the role in The Godfather is interesting. They called Vito up after he retired. Vito had different endeavors. He'd work for Pepsi while he was a fighter too to endorse their things. He opened up a pizzeria place, also one of his things he had. And what happened, they called him, and he wasn't in a good mood. And he was kind of angry to come down something with the movie directors wanted to see him. And when Vito showed up, he told me he was less than pleasant. He was an angry guy. And he says, "You call me down here for this, blah, 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 blah." And then the producers said, "That's exactly what we want." They love the anger, and they wanted him to be natural. But listen, Vito's a sweetheart, though. I don't get the impression he's walking around an angry guy and so on. He's, an absolute pleasure to be around. And I had a fun time with Vito doing this one time too. Emil Griffith, the legendary Emil Griffith, great welterweight, middleweight champion. Vito fought Emil at kind of when Emil was on the downside of his career. It was a main event at Madison Square Garden. Vito won a decision, but Vito had two idols, he told me. Nino Benvenuti, the great middleweight champ from Italy, and Emil Griffith. So when Vito was a kid in Italy, he used to watch the Benvenuti Griffith fights. And believe it or not, Griffith was his number one idol and Benvenuti was 1A. So I mentioned to Vito once in the car, going just the two of us. I say, Vito, you're going to find this hard to believe. Because at that time, I got a little status in boxing, being president of the Boxing Writers Association of America. Say, Vito, you're going to find this hard to believe. Even though we've been friends a long time, whenever I pick you up and we get together, I'm all psyched up about it. Even though I've been around all these big name fighters, being around you, I get excited, psyched up. And he said to me, I know exactly how you feel because I'm that way whenever I'm around Emil Griffith. So now I'm taking Emil and Vito to a golf tournament in Westchester. We're caught in traffic. So it's like a 2-hour ride to get there. But having the two of them in the car, I'm excited about it. Wow, I'm with these two guys in the car. But Vito loved teasing Emil because he loved him. Emil didn't appreciate all the teasing, He didn't realize how much Vito was fond of him to that extent. And Emil had been on the cover of TV Guide a couple of weeks before. They were detailing the fight in which Benny the Kid Paret tragically died against Emil. So Emil was kind of reborn as a celebrity because TV Guide was big in those days, the old TV Guides, and for Emil to be on the cover. So Vito is complaining to Emil when he fought him, why Emil hit him so hard, Why did you hit me so hard? You're my idol. Why did you hit me so hard? And finally, leave it to me to instigate stuff and fuel it. I turn around to Emil. I go, yeah, he had to keep an ice pack on his ribs for a week after you hit him. So finally, Emil explodes and goes, I was just doing my job. And he's yelling at Vito. And we're stopped at a street light. And people are looking. And I'm thinking to myself, if they only knew who was in this car. They see this man, the guy who was on the cover TV Guide, they have no idea. But when I got to the golf tournament, what I remember, I walked in with Emil and Vito, and I'm with them, and I remember seeing all the faces looking at the two guys in awe. There's Vito and Emil. So, but Vito Antifermo, a fighter who gave it all he had every moment of the fight, and he's a big fan favorite.
One of my favorites of all time, Jack. So what we're going to do, Jack, is we're going to get to this day in sports history, and we'll see what you think about what I bring up in the past. In 1927, the Harlem Globetrotters play their first ever game, Jack.
I didn't know the year 1927. I think of the 1927 New York Yankees when I think of sports. Well, going back, the Harlem Globetrotters, first class entertainment. But in this day of social sensitivity, the Harlem Globetrotter, it wouldn't go over as well these days.
Yes, true. Very true. But I'll tell you right now, did they put on a show? They have played against other teams seriously in the past where they did actually beat them without putting on the show.
The big debate was, could the Globetrotters, Mac, beat NBA teams? That's what people used to say. Yeah, ask.
Right. And I think maybe when they had Will Chamberlain on there, they might have beat a couple NBA teams, Jack, Just say it.
Well, Wilt distilled. Otherwise, I don't think so.
In 1963, a rift between owner Art Modell and coach Paul Brown ended up getting Paul Brown fired, Jack. He ended up going on to be the owner and coach of the Cincinnati Bengals, if I'm correct.
Well, you know what it is? When you're in a position of power, as long as Paul Brown was, going back to the earlier days of the NFL, it's hard to adjust to a new owner and start taking orders because you want to still run things your own way. You feel as if you're still, the owner more or less. And the personality conflict led to that.
Sure. The New York Islanders' Byron Trotter scores his 10th
Brian Trottier. Trottier.
Hat-trick in 1982. Trottier, thank you, Jack. I'm going to get these names right eventually as far as pronouncing the hockey players and boxers.
Well, no.
Go ahead, Jack.
Brian Trottier was an integral part of the Islanders winning 4 Stanley Cups in a row. And who was the last team to win 4 championships in a row? I believe it was the Islanders. Good trivia question here. I think they were
Yeah.
the last major sports team to win 4 in a row. Even the great Chicago Bull teams won 3 in a row, took a couple of years off, then won another 3 in a row.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even the Patriots have won a couple. The Cowboys won a couple in a row, but it's hard.
I mean, the Bills have went to 4 Super Bowls in a row, but won none. But the Islanders actually won 4 cups in a row.
Right. 1992, Tom Seaver and Raleigh Fingers are elected to the Hall of Fame, Jack. To me, Tom Seaver and this is my opinion only, there are numbers to back it up, is probably one of the top 3 pitchers in baseball history, in my opinion, anyway, Jack.
Wow, that's a heavy statement. I mean, listen, Tom Seaver was great. To say he was one of the top 3 pitchers in New York and baseball history, I'm not sure that I agree. I can't quite agree with that. If we sit down and analyze all the pitchers very carefully, I don't know would I quite put Tom Seaver there. I think more like one of the top 20 in baseball history for sure. Starters, maybe. You can make an argument one of the top 10, the lower part perhaps, but top 3, I don't know.
I just think with his career wins, World Series appearances, especially in that 69 team, Jack, he was an incredible pitcher. How about Raleigh Fingers? What do you know about Raleigh Fingers?
I mean, great reliever. He started his career, I believe starting the way Dennis Eckersley did. But, an integral part of those Oakland A teams is their closer. The Oakland A teams that won 3 World Series in a row, 72, 73, and 74. The handlebar mustache.
Right.
I mean, great reliever. And, he closed out games magnificently.
So in 1998, Shaquille O'Neal, Shaq blocks 3 shots, bringing his career total to over 1,002, Jack. And you know something? When we talk about the greatest centers in history, we always leave him out. And I don't know if it's because of, the legend of Bill Russell and, of course, of Wilt Chamberlain. And, you can throw Moses Malone in his prime. You could put a few of them out there. But when we talk about him, we really don't talk about probably the most dominating center in the 90s into 2000, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, Shaq was one of the all-time greats. He treated himself a little. You question whether he was completely dedicated. You question that a little bit. And they talk about styles making fights. We talked about boxing before. Styles have a say in basketball as well. And something about Hakeem Olajuwon going against Shaq. Hakeem knew how to play Shaq. He would finesse him a little bit. But I always felt when you talked about the great Wilt Chamberlain, he was the strongest man alive when he played. But the one player who came after him who would have given Chamberlain absolute fits would have been Shaq, because Shaq was so strong and close. He was nearly unstoppable that way. Had Shaq been a little better of a foul shooter, that would have helped his ranking. But listen, one of the top 10 centers of all time, maybe one of the 5 top centers. And if you call Shaquille O'Neal the greatest center of all time, people are going to disagree with you, but no one could say that's ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree with that because, to me, Jack, I mean, you got Kareem, you got Wilt, you got Bill, and then maybe Shaq.
Shaq's got 4 NBA titles. And listen, Shaq was at his best and Kobe was at his best. I remember Doc Rivers being interviewed when Doc Rivers wasn't involved at all. He wasn't involved at all with the Lakers. He was coaching elsewhere at the time. Doc Rivers said, well, we all know that Shaquille O'Neal is the more valuable player to the Lakers than Kobe Bryant. I kind of remember him saying that, and that always left an impression with me. But even though I'm not sure that that's accurate on reflection, seeing what Kobe did over his career, nevertheless, there was a perception that Shaquille was the man, during that time.
And real quick, Jack, 2007, Phil Jackson becomes the fastest NBA coach to win 900 games. Coached some great teams. A lot of people think the teams are what gave him all them wins, but I think he had something to do with it too. Better coach than general manager, that's for sure.
Oh, well, you're right. Right, give him credit. Listen, the one year that Michael Jordan went off to play baseball, they had a 55-27 record during the regular season, meaning they won twice as many regular season games as they lost, and they got bumped out of the playoffs on a disputed call on Hubert Davis, where they said Hubert Davis was fouled when, it was a petty call.
Yeah. So, Jack, that's it for the show today. A great, entertaining show to me, anyway. I had a great time with some of the guests. Great information. Great look at Vito. And, guys, come back tomorrow. We'll have our weekend review with Byron Williams, our NFL analyst, and our TGI Sports host talk. He's the host of TGI Sports Talk, I should say, Keith Angle. He'll look at the Patriots. We'll close that out and forward to the Knicks. And he's been posting about it. He's pretty excited about what the Knicks are doing, as all Knicks fans are kind of right now in the beginning. And we'll be back tomorrow, 8 to 10 a.m. Please go ahead and join us. If you're on YouTube, go ahead and follow us, subscribe, follow us on Spotify. We're all over the place. Great show, Jack. You have a great
show.
day.